President will speak to us now on this meeting agenda.
Deputy President David Mabuza and the leaders of all the political parties represented in our parliament. We have just finished the most wonderful meeting where the leaders of all political parties honored us with their presence, having responded very positively to the invitation that we made to them to meet this morning so that we can brief them on the challenge that our country is facing at the moment with regard to the global coronavirus pandemic. All leaders agree that COVID-19, the outbreak, is posing a grave and a real threat to the lives as well as the livelihoods of our people as a whole. We all agree that our country finds itself in an extreme situation that requires extraordinary measures. But that also requires that we should find a way of working together so that we work with unity of purpose and solidarity, as well as partnership and top-class cooperation. It is therefore both appropriate and significant that the 14 political parties in our parliamentary system have found it good to stand together across party political divides to fight this disease together based on advancing the interests of the people of South Africa and also defending the lives of all our people. We hereby demonstrate in a very practical way that we are united as the leaders of our nation to overcome this global crisis that's facing our country and our people. We all agree that this is an unprecedented moment. We have not seen anything as serious as this confronting the entire nation. And we agree that regardless of our political persuasions, our political differences, all of us share a common desire to keep our people safe, but also to mitigate the impact of this virus on the lives of our people, yes, but also on our economy, and ensure that the inevitable disruption to the lives and livelihoods of all South Africans is reduced. We also accept our collective and individual duty as leaders to provide guidance and to give direction to our people, to provide the leadership, and to demonstrate that the greatest of care that we need to show to our people is our responsibility in our actions, in our pronouncements, and also to help mobilize all the people of South Africa behind this very important effort. Now, during the course of our discussions, we agreed on some of the following key issues: that the severity of COVID-19 threat requires an exceptional response that draws on all the resources and capabilities of our nation, that this response needs to be immediate and that it also needs to be sustained, and we therefore support the measures that government has announced. I was really truly humbled by the expression of support by all the leaders for all the measures that have been announced. Our overwhelming concern must be for the health and the well-being of all of us, particularly the poor, the elderly, and those who are vulnerable, but more importantly, those who may have compromised health situations or conditions. The actions we take and the decisions that we will make must be informed by this imperative. While COVID-19 poses a great threat to our nation. We are not helpless, as we have said. There is much that we can do as a country and as individual citizens to slow down the spread of this disease and to save the lives and improve the health situation of all of us, to curb and to bring down this epidemic. Every person, but also every institution and grouping has a role to play in combating this disease. And we agreed that all political parties that are represented here must equally bear the responsibility of mobilizing our people, communicating with our people in a variety of ways that we possibly can. An effective popular campaign against this disease depends on the provision of regular and accurate information to the public and access that people must have to screening. We all agreed that there must be continuous communication by government. This was a clear request from all political parties, and that we must be transparent, we must be continuously communicating with our people, and that we have agreed to do. An active response also requires heightened levels of personal responsibility on the part of citizens. All political leaders here felt very strongly that all South Africans must take responsibility for their actions, and in a number of ways, the political leaders here were even much stronger in terms of insisting on this than possibly than we have. But this also includes personal infection control measures such as regular hand washing, as we've said, avoiding public gatherings and maintaining a distance from other people. And this, the leaders reinforced that we should desist from having public gatherings that go beyond 100 people. And I was particularly pleased to hear this from political leaders, because political organizations really exist by holding large-scale meetings. But this time around, all of us said we are going to curtail and limit the number of political gatherings that we have, and certainly ensure that they are not more than 100. So this means that all of us as political leaders are committing ourselves to ensuring that we do not go beyond what government has announced, which they support completely. And we should also ensure that there is unnecessary physical contact and excessive alcohol use that increases the chances of infection. And we also touched on things like taverns, nightclubs and all that, and announcements will be made in this regard by government. We should be alert to disinformation, rumor and fake news, and ensure that we do not disseminate fake news or rumor mongering or disseminate unverified information. Also agreed that as political parties we will want to work together from the same information sheet so that we have the same message and many voices. And the voices on this issue should cut across the various political parties, because we've decided as political parties that we are not to be partisan. We're going to have a non-partisan approach. Our political squabbles and differences end when it comes to coronavirus. This is an enemy that we confront together, jointly, in a uniform way, to make sure that we rid our country of coronavirus. So we call on all citizens to refrain from making excessive purchases. It is important to understand that the supply of goods remains continuous in South Africa. Supply chains remain intact, and there is no need for stockpiling of any items. So there's really no need for anyone to rush to shopping centers to go and buy 1 million rolls of toilet paper, sanitizers. There is just no need for that. All social partners, specifically government, business and labor, needs to jointly develop and implement measures to mitigate the economic effects of COVID-19. Companies in distress need to be assisted. It's the proposal that has come from the leaders of the political parties. A number of very useful and positive proposals were put forward, and political leaders have also said that they want to add on to some of the proposals that we need to implement to shore up our economy, because we all realize that the impact on the economy is going to be quite devastating. So as government, we've said we are open to suggestions, and I was rather pleased that our leaders collectively have shown a very positive disposition towards coming up with really useful proposals which we will want to take forward. So we appreciate the understanding and the cooperation of our political leaders here in Parliament and of all South Africans as a whole. And so we had a fantastic meeting, and I was really heartened and humbled by the cooperative spirit that prevailed in the meeting, and we are truly grateful to have the leaders that we have in our nation who, at a critical moment like this, have felt the need that we all get together, we confront this virus together, and fight together on the same side, and make sure that we save the lives of all South Africans. You will have heard already that we already have 185 people, 116 people rather, 116 people who already have the virus. It is spreading. So it is necessary that we close ranks, we work together to ensure that in the end, together, as we stand together, we are able to defeat this virus. So I want to thank you, but especially thank the leaders that this morning we've shown a really, truly united front as South African leaders in tackling this virus. And so I thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, His Excellency, the President. Colleagues, why don't we also give the President a place to stay,
Yes.
to sit, or want him to stand there and speak, whilst we have parties, but few, because we don't have the time. We'll take the major parties, starting with the Democratic Alliance. Just a minute, Mr. Steenhuisen. We don't have the time.
You don't mind if I stand next to you today?
As long as you don't tell me to shut up.
Not today.
Mr. President, thank you very much for the opportunity to interact with you this morning. Thanks for bringing us all together. I think thanks also for the opportunity to put on the table some really good solutions which we think can help you in the Cabinet get through particularly the economic impact of this on South Africa. I'm very comfortable that the health aspect has been very well handled by Dr. William Kiese, our Minister of Health, and that the efforts to flatten the curve are the right ones. We do share with you the concern around the ingrained effect it's going to have on our economy, and particularly keeping the doors of small business open and keeping South Africans in work. Our economy was already in a difficult space. A black swan event like this can have devastating impacts if not managed correctly, and we thank you for the opportunity to make those inputs. I would like to make an appeal in two aspects to South Africans, to the private sector and big business, particularly, to get involved in the effort. This is going to require the best efforts of all South Africans to come together to fight this virus and the effects on our economy. It's not a time for anyone to be sitting back on their hands. The second appeal I'd like to make is to our fellow citizens out there to stop the panic buying. It is not necessary. We can beat this virus and we can get through this, but it's going to require all of us to be calm but deliberative in our approach. And I think if we can get that right, we're going to get through this. But we need to stop the panic buying and, most importantly, stop the fake news. Let's rely on credible news sources, that we're sharing credible information with people and not engendering panic. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mr. Malema.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for having created this opportunity to interact with the political parties represented in Parliament. We really want to thank the Minister of Health and the medical team, including you, Mr. President, for having responded effectively and positively with regard to this crisis we are confronted with. As the EFF, we fully support the initiative of government, and we call upon all South Africans to listen to the leadership of our government and follow exactly as we are told. We call upon all business people who are dealing with gloves, sanitizers, masks, not to try and maximize profit out of this crisis. We also call upon the private hospitals that the only way to avoid nationalization of those private hospitals is by fully cooperating with the Minister of Health when he needs beds for our sick people. It is not time to make profit. We have expressed our commitment to the President and asked the President to make sure that no one steals out of this disaster. We know that these corrupt elements steal during funerals. They did so with President Mandela's funeral, they did so with Mama Winnie's funeral, and we don't want to see them taking advantage during this disaster, and we called upon the President to act decisively against anyone who would want to take advantage of this situation and steal from the poor of the poorest. Our people, we are called upon, please, in the gatherings, funerals, if you are not a close relative or a friend or anything of that sort, avoid going to funerals. We call upon church leaders to really cooperate with government and not allow more than 100 people in churches. It is the church which can help us to stop this crisis. The church should not contribute to this crisis negatively. We are calling upon our church leaders to listen to our premiers, our mayors, and the President. Let's work together to reduce the spread of this virus. South Africa, it is possible. We are here because unity of purpose is necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank Honourable President the straightforward and the honest way to communicate with us as opposition leaders. It is quite clear to me that the government is not in a state of denial. They are confronted with realistic measures, and I think it is important that we understand that in South Africa we are more vulnerable because of our high numbers of HIV people as well as TB. And I think the most important matter for the future is how we can cooperate to prevent that we move from a state of disaster to a national state of emergency, because that is a really severe measure. And I want to appeal to the people of South Africa that it is the people of South Africa that can play a role to prevent a state of emergency, to follow the guidelines. I also ask the Cabinet and the President that we have almost on a daily basis have communication with our people, that they get the real facts as far as that is concerned. So I'm very pleased that that is the approach. En ek wil dit baie duidelik stel. As die mense van Suid-Afrika besef wat is die erns van hierdie bedreiging en saamwerk en kontak so ver as moontlik vermy, dan kan ons die skade aansienlik verminder. So baie dankie, agbare President.
Thank you very much. Reverend Bishop. We are still sticking to 1 minute.
On behalf of the ACDP, we join all other political parties that have expressed gratitude to the President for bringing us together to enlighten us about what is really happening. And we are grateful for all the facts that Dr. Mkhize has given us. And when we have all the facts, then people are able to know what the truth is and not be influenced by fake news. Truth always undermines fake news, and we're grateful for that. And maybe lastly, I must make an appeal to churches that we need to cooperate with government. What the President said on Sunday makes sense, and in order to contain this virus, we need to cooperate. And I also want to appeal to churches to pray for a solution. When churches pray, then God is able to intervene. So let's use the time that we have, even though less than 100 at a time, to pray for South Africa and to pray for the solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last leader, General Holomisa. Okay. Then because we have got to go to Parliament. So these leaders have spoken for all of us, colleagues. We don't have time. Thank you very much, President. Thank you very much.
I think the virus is over. Yeah, we will share cigars. I have some cigars for you. Very good. Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you. Any ideas in it?
No, thank you.